Hello, welcome to my tutorial on sequence inside of Unreal Engine 5. The current version is Unreal Engine 5.2, so there might be different buttons depending on what version you are, or different locations for buttons, but it should theoretically work even across from Unreal Engine 4. There hasn't been too many changes since then. Right, so I'm in Unreal Engine. What I'm going to do is start off by creating a level sequence. There's two different ways of doing this. You can right click in the open space down here, don't right click a folder or don't right click up here, you're not going to get the same results as what we want. Just right click in this open space. One way of doing this is by just typing now, so we can type in level sequence and it'll come up here. Another way of doing it is by clicking in the open space again, and you can hover over cinematics and you can click level sequence here. Name this something appropriate, so I'm just going to come on camera underscore cinematic. There you go. Double click this and your sequencer will open. Don't really want mine down here, I'm probably going to keep it off the screen. If you have a second monitor, it might be best to have that on the second monitor. I'm just going to leave it down here for now. Right, so first things first is, in my sequencer, I'm going to start off by creating a camera by clicking this icon here. If you already have a camera in the scene, so just an example, if you already have a camera in the scene, I'm going to drag one in quickly. Drag this down if I can, there we go. Let's say you already have a camera in the scene like this. All you have to do is left click on your camera, and in the top right in your outliner, your camera should already be selected if you selected in the world, and then hold down left click, drag and let go in this left section. That will drag it in. Automatically, once you have it created or selected inside of your sequencer, it will pilot your camera. What this gives the option to do is to actually control the camera as if it's the viewport camera, so we can use WSD and mouse buttons to move around. For now, I'm going to stop piloting by pressing this button up here, and I'm going to leave it like this. I think I get a bit more control on the camera if I do have it like this. Okay. If you do want to pilot it, just right click the camera and click pilots and a camera actor here. Okay. Right, now that's done, I just want to go through two different ways or methods of changing your orientation gizmo here. So currently we are on the world axis, and what that means is that the world has this big grid of values. You can see it over here on the right. These are the values. Currently it's on the world axis. This will always be the same for every single object. So if I even drag in something like a cube, if I rotate the cube, it will stick onto that world axis. Okay, so it's exactly the same for the camera and the cube. A way to change this is by clicking this little icon up at the top, the little globe. If I press that, it will swap to local axis. Every object has its own local axis. So if I rotate this, you can see that the gizmo changes depending on where the actor is or the object. Same thing if I had a cube. Rotate this, it will rotate with that. So that gives us a bit of control. On a camera, you might want to swap between the world axis and the local axis if you wanted to. And I'm just going to keep it in the local axis. I'm going to turn off this rotation button up here, so that stop it. So if I rotate now, you see it goes up and down by 10 degrees. And if I unselect it by clicking this icon, I can rotate it by any value I want, even in the decimals. And I'm going to do the same thing for the grid snapping. So right now it snaps to a grid by 10. You can see it snaps slightly. Unselecting that, you will no longer get that snap. We don't need to untick this one, so this one's your scale. Scale doesn't matter on the camera. It's not affecting the view. If you look at this viewport here, it's not affecting that to me at all, so I'm not going to change that. I'm going to use this view quite a lot here at the bottom right. If I unselect it, you'll see that it disappears. To pin it, just click this little pin preview. Then if I select off, you can see the camera move no matter what. And that's the basics of what we need to know for now inside of this. So I'm going to go to my sequencer. If you've ever worked with anything such as Premiere Pro or anything like that, these are essentially your layers here. The camera cuts controls which cameras are playing and where. So if this is off the screen, this section here will not get rendered if we were to render it out, or will not get played because the camera cuts. It's not cut into that; it's cut into an empty space. So I'm going to leave that like this for now. To zoom out, hold down Control and scroll out. That will give us a bit more frames to work with. So right now we are in the negatives. We don't really want to be there. To move to the right is what you do is you hold down right click and you just drag to the left. Okay. The green line here indicates where the animation starts. So we're going to have to keep this on frame 0. And the red line indicates where it ends. So I'm going to drag this out a little bit and probably get to 300 frames. So currently we're at 30 FPS in this indicated here. What that means is that this should be a 10-second animation because we're at 300 frames currently total. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this out slightly, and what I'll do is I'll have another camera cut here. So we'll have two cameras in the scene. So I'm going to start off with animating this camera. I'm going to left click this camera, get a frame 0, maybe 1, it won't get frame 0 perfectly. I'll zoom in. To zoom in, same thing, just hold on Control and scroll up. Get this to frame 0, there we go. Now I'm ready to animate, okay. Maybe the camera's a bit too zoomed in, so just remember, if I spawn the camera on the right side in details, if I scroll down here, might be a bit too small, maybe I want this overlay a bit better. That's not doing it, so I'll have the outline here and the details here, that'll make it give me a bit more room. Or you can just close down your content browser for now if you wanted to, so I can just close that down. There we go. Get a bit more room here. If I have my camera selected, like I do here, on the right side we actually get some camera options, so we can actually change what kind of camera it is. For now, I just want to change the focal length. Move that back a little bit. If you ever see your camera is a bit blurry or what's on the screen is a bit blurry, just change the aperture up and down, okay, depending on what you need it to be, whether you need to be more clear or you want to have that kind of blur onto your object or your primary targets here. Right, so now I'm okay with this view here, so this FOV in a way, so your focal length. I'm going to show you how to start animating. So in this camera we can actually animate, if I open this up, we can animate the aperture, the focal length and the manual focus distance off by art, or straight away. I can add a track, sorry, and add more settings with the camera and animate more settings. You can even have it animate whether it's hidden in game or not. But for now I'm just going to focus on the movement of the camera. So to keyframe, you'll see a little plus on the right of transform. So transform is showing our local, rotation and our scale values. If I open this up, you can even get more into your XYZ or your roll, pitch, yaw for the rotation and the XYZ for the scale. If you want to have specific values being changed on specific axes. So I'm going to minimize that for now because I don't want to worry about that for now. So I'm going to start off by making a keyframe on my transform by clicking this little plus button here. That's keyframe where the camera position is currently. I'm going to drag forward on the timeline, probably to about here. I do want to stop before the actual camera cuts. I'm then going to move my camera, probably have it go pan across this level and rotate a bit, and then set into the keyframe. And now you should see this spline here, and what that means is that it's animating on the track, it's motion track, and we can see the camera animating down here. If you don't like setting the keyframes yourself, you can click this button at the top, this little key icon, Then move the camera, and you'll see that it automatically adds a keyframe. So that's an auto key option there. Pans across. There you go, I'm happy with that. You can drag this back a little bit. I want it to stay on this camera. I can click this viewport option here, or this camera, and what that does is that it locks this camera cut, or whatever selected in the camera cut, to the viewport. Like so. And just untick it to come out of it. Right, so now I want to add another camera. I'm going to drag this timeline, or this time slider, to where I want to put my new camera. So I'm going to drag it all the way to the end. And then I'm going to click create a new camera. So I've made a second camera, and maybe I want this to focus on something else or show off another section of the level. I'm probably going to zoom this one out a tiny bit again. And you'll see that it hasn't actually added to my camera cuts, but it has added to the level section here and the layer section, sorry, the tracks. So I'm just going to make sure that I add it on the camera cut. So just show you what happens if I have this selected, to show what the camera sees if I was to run this out. If I go to the end, it'll cut out. It doesn't cut to a camera, it'll actually go black, I'm pretty sure, if you do render. So what I'm going to need to do is go to frame, wherever it is I want to put it. So I'm going to put it in frame 195. I'm then going to click plus camera, and then select my second camera. So I'm pretty sure that's my second camera. Just double checking. It's not. This is why it's important to name your stuff before you start animating, okay? So here we go, and now if I press play, plays the first animation, and then it cuts to the second camera, and maybe you want the second camera animating, and I'll have a go at doing that. So I'm going to do the same thing. So this is my current camera. I'm going to click keyframe for the transform here, and I'm going to move forward the timeline, move my camera. Maybe this is where world will come into play, so set this to world, drag this across here, have it rotate again, something very simple. And I've got auto keyframe on, so it's automatically added a keyframe for me. So now the first animation will play, and then it'll swap to the other camera. Alright, cool. So we've animated cameras. We can animate the aperture or the focal length if you want to, have an experiment with that. But what I want is a nice clear transition between these two cameras, because it kind of just jolts between from one camera to the other. A good way to do that in level sequence is by adding if you click plus track, the green plus icon, you can add a fade track. So currently fade is set to 0. I'm going to go to where I want it to fade out. So the fade out will be around here, where my camera cut is. Trying to get it perfect. There we go. And then I'm going to set the fade to 1. I'm going to keyframe. So you'll see that that's actually turned my screen black. If you set this to 100, you'll have some problems. So 0 to 1, 0 means clear, and 1 means 100% faded. I'm going to move back a few frames, and then I'm going to set this to 0. Because auto key's on, we've got quite a nice start. Move forward, or you can hold down shift, oh not shift, sorry, you can hold down alt and drag that keyframe. It's not really, it keeps snapping to my other frame, so what I'm going to do is zoom in a little bit and you get a bit more room to drag it. And now if I press play, you'll see that it fades in, oh sorry, fades out and then fades in, which is what I want. The problem you might get is if you do have auto key on, let's say this camera had no animation. If I come out of this view and find that camera here, if I was to move this camera, it does not automatically set a keyframe. Reason for that is, even though it's key on, you do have to set your keyframe manually at first. So I'm going to set a transform frame here, and then I should be fine moving, and it'll automatically create a keyframe for me. For this bit here, I'm going to actually drag these two keyframes. I'm going to hold on Alt and drag this to the end, and that will give me a nice little fade out at the end of the animation. So now if I press play, it fades out. There we go. So that's the basics of sequence for now. If you do want, there are some extra things which you can do. So we could also go into the graph editor, click our camera transform, and we can actually change some of these values so that we can control the in-between frames, such as your location X, Y, Z, and you can actually change the way the camera moves. So this would make the camera move up on the, or positive on the Z axis quite slowly, and then slowly come down, gain speed, and then slow down into the end transition. But that's a bit more complex, that's a bit more of the animation. It's something definitely worth looking into, but for now I'm pretty happy with my camera animations. So I'm going to close this. So when you got your animation done, or your camera sequence, what you can do, because you know what, I'm actually going to top of these two frames and have it fade in at the start. There we go. Probably add a few more frames on that, so it's not too jarring. There we go, that's not bad. Right, now what I want to do is render this movie. So there are different options. For now I'm going to use the render this movie to a video, and you'll get these render movie settings. For now AVI is quite good. If you want individual images for every single frame, you can select JPEG and you can put it together or stitch it together inside of Premiere to probably get a bit more of a better quality in your render. We got no audio. If you want to add audio, it's very simple. You can just add a audio track, and if you have a .wav files inside of your Unreal Engine, you can actually drag that to your audio track if you want audio or sound effects. Resolution, you can put it to 1080p if you want. 720 is not that bad, especially for showing off work, but for final renders you would be looking towards that 1080p. Use compression, I'm going to actually untick that because that can cause some problems with the render output and the quality of it. Output directory, just make sure you save this somewhere relative. So I'm just going to save mine to my documents for now. File format, just this is what you want to call your file, so I'm going to call mine cinematic underscore sequence. Okay, don't have to worry about these options here, so I'm going to hide that. Everything seems fine. That seems fine. That seems fine for now. Cool. I'm going to click capture movie. It'll automatically save the level while it does a render. And at the top bottom right, you'll see that it's capture video. The top left shows a very small window of our animation. Can open this up. What you can do is just click open capture folder at the bottom right. Open this up. I'm going to open this with, it's probably best using films and TV if you right click. So I did have a problem with my render when I was looking at it. So if I show it here, press play, you'll see that my render actually has quite a bit of lag and stutter within the video. Tested this on the college computers, it worked completely fine. It was just my personal computer, so hopefully you won't have this problem. So if I go forward, you'll see how it jitters. Don't want that. So yeah, you shouldn't get those results when you do your renders. Right, cool. I'll see you in the next video where we'll look more into character animation and putting character animation inside of the sequencer. And this will be perfect for things such as cutscenes and also just advancing your cinematic animation within a game engine.